Okay, we're live on the internet, so we're right to proceed. Just please keep our fingers crossed. If we could start with 466, Tom Pearce. Is Tom with us this evening? If people aren't here, I'll simply move on to the next one and just keep going through the list. The next one is 467, is Liam Craig. Thank you, Liam.
How's that? Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Okay, tell me when to start. Can we go? Good evening all. My name is Liam Crick. I'm the General Manager for Lifesaving Services at Lifesaving Victoria. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today and address you all. In 2021, 63 people have lost their lives to drowning in Victoria. Now, I know that stat's a little while ago. It was also the year that Lifesaving Victoria and Volunteer Lifesavers did over 700 rescues around the Victorian coastline. The reason I raise this year is because the year that a 56-year-old Barwon Heads dad drowned off 13th Beach. Many of you will know him. He died on Saturday, the 23rd of January. He was attempting to rescue 2 children. Fortunately, the children managed to be saved. They tried to do CPR on him. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. He was an integral part of the Geelong community. He was a member of the Geelong Chamber of Commerce. He was a Chief Executive Officer and founder of a respected not-for-profit organisation that was dedicated to helping local businesses. He had a family, and many in the room will know of him or someone like him. He was at a non-patrolled beach when he drowned. The City of Great Geelong's proposed budget report incorporates the decision to cease funding for ocean lifeguard services for the upcoming season and beyond. Next season, that totals just under $50,000. Please bear in mind that this is only 25% of the contributed cost to the service delivery of that service requirement. This funding cut will have significant repercussions for the Geelong communities. Lifesaving Victoria is a non-for-profit entity. It's a social enterprise. It relies on this funding to deliver essential life-saving services across our coastline. Without the support, the safety of the individuals enjoying water activities in these communities will be compromised, and we will see further fatalities along our coastline. The likely and impacted locations are Bankura, 13th Beach, Barwon Heads, and Ocean Grove and beyond. Now, if we want to start talking figures, the direct value of the lives saved and all the activity that Lifesaving Victoria did last year was estimated at over $159 million. So that's the contribution to the greater city of Geelong in terms of the activity that those volunteers and those lifeguard services provided. When you take this into consideration and consider the council's duty of care along that coastline, with respect, it seems a little bit reckless at best to remove that funding or that funding source for those lifeguard services. There are obviously also employment losses, social impacts, and more. When you consider the value of life, the decision is even harder to stomach. I'd urge councils to consider the facts, none of which I've said to you today is fictional. This is all true. If there's any more facts I can provide, I'm more than happy to do them. But if the lifeguard ceases at these locations, we will see people drowned. That's all from me.
Thank you, Liam.
Thank you.
Next, we have our federal member for Corangamite, Libby Coker. Welcome, Libby.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Wadawurrung people, the First Nations people of this region, pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any First Nations people who are with us this evening. I'd also like to thank Council for this opportunity and for all councillors who are in attendance. It's not always an easy process. So on behalf of the constituents of the Corangamite electorate, I'm here tonight to express my disappointment with the approach the City of Greater Geelong is taking to address its dire financial position. It is unacceptable that significant cuts are occurring across a range of council services and facilities with little or no consultation with the community it serves. This was made evident at the recent Barwon Heads Library community meeting. There was about 40 people who attended that meeting. The potential closure and reduced hours of libraries is a significant issue. Highton, Geelong West, Chilwell and Barwon Heads have been targeted for reduced operation hours. And I do support a call from the community for community delegates to have a seat at the discussion table around local library operations. The community do want to know what will prevent these libraries from being targeted in the future. For example, when Armstrong Creek Library comes online in 2024 to 25. I'm also concerned by reduced access to aquatic facilities, withdrawal of council funding for sporting facility upgrades, and the anxiety it causes for local clubs. Withdrawal from the G21 Alliance and the uncertain future of the Geelong Regional Library Corporation, job losses, cancellation of locals' transport services and withdrawal of funding for lifeguards. The people of our region deserve stability and certainty when it comes to council services and infrastructure. They've paid their rates in good faith and entrusted council to deliver services and facilities efficiently. As a local federal representative, I ask the council to undertake the following with the necessary adjustments made to the 2024 COG budget. Publicly define the timeframe in which every affected project, particularly within the Corangamite electorate, due to the withdrawal of council funds, will be delivered in full, with particular regard to the Port Arlington Football Netball Club facilities upgrade, Drysdale Sporting Precinct upgrade and the Colandina Reserve Pavilion redevelopment. Facilitate an independent review of the G21 Alliance decision, including a cost-benefit analysis in partnership with the 5 affected local councils. Work in partnership with the Geelong Regional Library Corporation to keep libraries open, including at weekends. Provide transparency and clarity on job losses and redundancies with a concerted effort to retain and support all staff through this difficult period. And I urge Council to seriously consider community submissions in this budget and outline a more considered, compassionate and sophisticated approach to addressing the financial situation. Thank you for your time.
Yep. 479, Tom Dewey. 489, Jan McKenzie. 513, Jeannie Ward. 514 is Catherine Van Dirk Wast. Apologies if I've mispronounced that. 521, Ross Kroger. 544, Kate Stowell. 550 is Bryson West. 566, Teresa Drewer. 593, Rowan Byrne. 596, Tyrrell Hill. Thank you, Tyrrell.
Just checking we're working. Okay. Thank you very much. I represent the Belmont Lions Sports Club in support of our Facilities Development Plan December 21. First of all, because of the timing, I will get straight into the facts and the problem statement. Thank you very much for this opportunity. The Winter Reserve facility requires immediate and long-term investment. While the plan covers other areas in the reserve and community access, our most pressing issue is the equitable access of the facilities. In particular, there is no dedicated female-friendly facilities, and this represents 40 senior netballers during training and also during competition, plus competing clubs of around 40 as well each home game. Our netballs are having to get changed in the 2 cubicle toilets in the social rooms, along with the away team, a total of 80 girls or women on a Saturday, on top of the public who use the toilets. That's certainly not a suitable situation. Also mentioned, teams have to warm up in the car park around moving cars and extremely dangerous. With only 1 court training available, scheduling is very difficult for training and on match days. And as we grow our junior programs, it will only become worse. We have since bought a portable toilet at our cost into the facility over the last few years, and this year we've extended that to an actual portable toilet. It's not perfect, but it's the best we got at the moment. And the hut is only really for netball training, for storage and a little bit of admin. However, this does not have any services. No lights, no water, no power. The girls in our club are suffering from not having any facilities. We don't even have an undercover area at all for wet winter days. Probably a little bit like tonight. Can you imagine our girls out there on a Saturday in these conditions? They'd be drenched, nowhere to go, nowhere to cover. And there's no seating. However, the council allowed 1 small 2-metre seat in the last 2 years. What I want to do now is just introduce where we are. We recognise that the recent economic conditions post-COVID and continuing into 2023 pressure all levels of government, including local councils, but also, likewise, community clubs like us. We further note that within the proposed capital infrastructure budget there is a substantially constrained number of projects, and we note that many of them being moved out of the budget while ours hasn't even approached getting in it. This is stated as primarily because of escalations of over $130 million in this spend of materials and services. That's 21%. That's a fact that nobody can control. However, how we deal with it is another matter. Notwithstanding these conditions, the Belmont Lions seeks to work collaboratively and with a sense of urgency with the council to make a start on the key elements of our facility development plan in this budget.
Tyrrell, with respect, we're over the 3 minutes.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I will continue later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tyrrell.
Number 601, Diane Burke. Six 2-4, Tara Barry. 628, Peter Murphy. Thank you, Peter. I know it's a bit like bingo, but it's the best process we've got.
Shall I start? Yep. Great. Ladies and gentlemen of the...
Pull a bit closer to you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen of the Submissions Review panel, thank you for the time this evening. My name is Pete Murphy and I'm the president of a local residents association, the Friends of Rippleside Park and Environs. I stand or sit before you to seek ongoing commitment from Council to fund a picnic shelter and community hub at St Helens Park. During the 1970s and 1980s, St Helens was a community hub for swimming and outdoor recreation for Geelong residents. Photos of the time show the beach and pier full during summer. Unfortunately, due to a lack of maintenance and attention since the 1990s, the park and beach have deteriorated substantially. In 2020, Councillor Cantell, along with Friends of Rippleside Park and Environs, was successful in working with Council to secure $250,000 for rejuvenation of a key area within St Helens Park where an old toilet block had been removed. This area is now an eyesore of a concrete plinth. Our request is for Council to maintain the funding commitment to build a picnic shelter and community hub at this site. A local developer at Balmoral Quay has already committed to improving the area by refurbishing the beach and removing a stormwater outlet drain. So provision of this picnic shelter and community hub will help to draw people back to a once thriving area. This project aligns to fiscal objectives in the budget, namely for sustainable initiatives that improve our environment and reduce costs to service the community's needs. The Shelter and Community Hub also aligns to several strategic directions and health and wellbeing priorities outlined in the budget, namely those relating to increasing active living, creating healthy communities, and improving mental health, wellbeing, and social connection. I will close in adding that Friends of Rippleside Park and Environs understand the fiscal position of Council. So if full funding cannot be provided, we are seeking and will continue to seek additional funding from interested parties, including developers, to make up any shortfall. And finally, I note that a concept plan has already been prepared by Council. There is unwavering support by hundreds of local residents, affirmed by a community engagement survey ran by Council in June 2022, and a survey ran by Friends of Rippleside Park again in May 2023. So the work has already been started. Thank you for hearing my proposal for this important local project, which will benefit the community and aligns with the objective of the Council's budget.
Next is 630 Alex Dunn. Next, 650 Vincent Le Warrier. 654 Michelle Scully. 655 Govert Hooft. 660 Anne Maslin. 661 Mark Colley. 79 Ted Price. Thanks, Ted.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
I'll be brief. I want to get home to watch Utopia, so I won't be long. And well, the emphasis always seems to be on the big projects. They don't seem to get affected like what I submitted about the pool and the libraries. And the general feeling, I think, is in the community is they're the ones that are always hit, where the working people go. And with the pool, well, there was an emphasis put on costs in Bendigo and Ballarat at the last meeting here that we attended. And Bendigo were able to keep an outdoor pool open for the whole year. So a much smaller municipality than Geelong. So I can't see why Geelong can't do the same. And also, we don't sort of get any response at meetings like this. It's very robotic-like, it's just you put your submission in and that's it. And okay, thank you.
There will be responses forwarded out to all the submitters. That is forthcoming. So you will receive a response to your submission. But I do appreciate your observations of our process.
I'll receive, like in email, you mean, by email? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. At 701 Michael Finnegan, but pretty sure we had Michael last night. So 721 Cecilia O'Brien. 725 Kate Rowe. 733 Adele Bowen. 745 Andrew Branchflower. 750 Margaret Callett. My apologies. 740 Judith Brooks. Sorry, Judith, it wasn't deliberate. The light down here is not that great.
Good evening, councillors. I would like to support my submission to properly fund the libraries, the community libraries, by the following points. When reading the council budget, ratepayers are reminded, we all know this, but they're reminded that all budgets, big or small, reflect the priorities of the decision makers. These priorities are based on a value system. Now, many ratepayers have judged that the council's priorities are not equitable across the regions, nor are they seen to align with the stated values of those councillors. When a protest is widespread, as this one is for the libraries, and deeply felt, as this one is, it reaches a threshold, I would argue, that necessitates reconsideration. As the Mayor has informed us, Council has asked the GRLC to, quote, look for ways to run more effectively. This implies that the GRLC has room to find efficiencies. That is, it's not already running efficiently. We suspect, in the most respectful way possible, that this is a euphemism. Running effectively is always a euphemism for cutting services. It is not up to me, I'd love to have the job, but it's not up to me to study the budget in detail and advise the council as to a financial strategy to get you out of your financial difficulties. However, my request, along with many hundreds of others, of other ratepayers and residents, that community libraries not only be returned to pre-COVID service levels, but also be quarantined in future budgets. It was only in 2017, 6 years ago, that we had to assemble protests to keep community libraries open. This is vivid in our memories. As a ratepayer from Barwon Heads, a small coastal town which provides $8 million per year in rates, I think this is not too much to ask. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Brett Smith, but Tyrrell Hill will be speaking on his behalf. How do you break your rhythm before there, Tyrrell? I should have just kept you up there.
Here we go. I have to find my place. Okay, I finished off indicating we want you to consider putting our immediate needs in the plan in the budget. We request the Council to revisit the budgeted capital expenditure plan prior to finalisation and provides visibility of where Winter Reserve Works sits in the ranking. Indeed, we seek to understand the assessment model that is used, the process and the process undertaken, in particular to provide the ranking results and our scores to assist us to understand the likelihood of success and the next steps required by us or those acting on our behalf to be successful in allocation going forward. Now, we sought clarity prior to the finalisation of the draft budget in March, and we got a reply just before the budget was released as a draft. That budget made it very clear that the council and the officers share our concerns and our view that the recognition and recognise the need for female facilities upgrades at Winter Reserve. It also indicated, obviously, that they'd been reviewed. However, we don't have any information. There was no questions asked or sought clarifications via the club or our stakeholders, and the three councillors of the Kindinya world know that I requested that many times in the 6 months prior. So basically, we want you to go and revisit it. We're prepared to work with you in order to make a start wherever we can. Now, something that's pretty hot off the press is that we have the $1 million state funding, and I note in the budget that the state funding for other things is rather low this year. So this is money in the hand that we should be using to get our start, such as detailed design and the like, going on. Also made very clear in our submissions private and the many documents and the walkthroughs that we've had for all the stakeholders is that the club has achieved an $80,000 fund entirely generated by our fundraising during COVID and the last 2 years in order to support this. So we've got skin in the game, and we're looking for you guys to get into this and start talking to us to deliver the plan. If you need any more information, we're always available. You can meet down at our club, talk with whatever you want to do, but we want to see some action. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyrrell. Uh, 769, Victoria Spicer. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission. I represent Save Geelong West Library, a grassroots movement created within hours of the announcement of proposed library closures in our region. We are a passionate local movement organised by library users. We mobilised to oppose the proposed closure of Geelong West Library and other branch libraries. Happily, branch closures are off the agenda for now. But the funding shortfall of $762,000 remains. Services in all libraries in the region will be slashed. Councillors are fond of spinning the figures. Overall funding is up by 2%. An amount that won't even cover salary increases, let alone the increased cost of everything in an inflationary environment. And there is nothing in the funding allocation for the new Drysdale Library. Nothing. For some unexplained reason, the cost of operating the new library, $762,000, has been treated separately from overall library funding. When the City of Greater Geelong builds new libraries, it funds the operating costs, or it used to. This has been standard practice for decades. Changing this arrangement without explanation is quite simply outrageous. And for councillors to try and spin it otherwise is insulting. Your constituents are not stupid. We can thank libraries for that. The Library Corporation could have decided to close the Drysdale Library, not operate the Drysdale Library. A library can't operate without funding. And the $762,000 it will cost to operate Drysdale has been denied them. Instead, they've decided to spread the cuts across all libraries in the City of Greater Geelong. There will be significant service reductions in all branches. All libraries, except the City Library, will be closed on Saturday afternoons, Sundays and weekday evenings. Do you know what that will mean for those who work and the families of working parents? Many will be unable to use a library ever. Saturday mornings, of course, are for many dedicated to sport. At Vaughan Ponds, for example, families regularly combine a visit to the library with a swim at the leisure centre. Not anymore. To be truly accessible, library facilities must be local. The Geelong Library and Heritage Centre is not a viable option for many. Car access, parking difficulties, and limited public transport options being obvious barriers. Library users know, and thousands of residents support and follow our campaign. More than 1,258 people have signed just the Geelong West petition, more than 3,800 our online petition, and there are thousands of other signatures from the Barwon Heads and the Heighton campaigns.
Victoria, thank you. We have received of your submission. We're well over the 3 minutes, so I will ask you to leave it there, but we do understand what you're saying this evening and the passion involved.
Okay,
thank you. Next is 774 George Ryan. (775) Kelly Romanen. 778 Julia Baggio. 779 Jessica Davis. 795 Angela Carr. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Angela Carr. I'm a mum of 3 and a local social worker. And I'm appalled by the draft budget and do not believe that it reflects the values or expectations of the community and ratepayers. I am completely opposed to budget cuts. Councils are supposed to deliver services to the community and not run like a business with a surplus. And make no mistake here, the cuts in this budget are gendered and will hit women the hardest. I have been accessing the library since the birth of my children. Regular attendance at the library provided me the opportunity to connect with other mums and instilled fundamental early learning opportunities which have fostered positive educational, developmental and social outcomes for my children. As my children have entered school and being a single working parent, we use the library services on the weekends. With library hours reduced on the weekends, we will no longer be able to access the library. In the current cost of living crisis, libraries have become more valuable forever for vulnerable people in our communities, such as the homeless population, the elderly and working families. We know that libraries are more than just books. They are used to access the internet, to look for jobs, for heating, a place to connect. The cuts to jobs in the community life portfolio are directly targeting marginalised communities, including women, and are at odds with the community's priorities that have been identified in the city's community plan, which was agreed upon in consultation with the community. Priorities identified in the plan they include promoting a strong economy with job opportunities for all and supporting a healthy, caring and inclusive community. Cutting jobs and reducing services only diminish council's ability to achieve these strategic directions. Members of our community should not be punished for poor budgeting decisions made by council, and I find it completely astounding that the operational costs to staff Drysdale and Armstrong Creek were not factored into the budget. Geelong's population is steadily increasing and services need to be increased in line with population growth. The council's argument that you're providing more funding to library services per head of population is a flawed argument. As we know, the Library Corporation manages 16 libraries for the City of Greater Geelong, far more than other library than member councils, all of whom are providing the appropriate funding. Council must increase the allocation to GRLC, 762,000 for Drysdale and 365 for Armstrong Creek. And there should be no reduction in services as you've already slashed library hours during COVID. If you have a budget blowout from failed IT and capital works projects, perhaps you could review upper management wages. Why should the executives be getting paid so much while cutting essential jobs and services to the community? And I will remind councillors that the community is not going to forget who voted in this budget come election time next year. Thank you.
Angela. 796, Greg Andrews. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Council, for taking my submission. My name is Greg Andrews. I'm a 50-year Lara resident and a 30-year ratepayer. My wife and I attended Lara Aquatic Centre over 60 times last season. Contained in the strategic directions of the budget, 5 health and wellbeing priorities, including increased active living and improved mental wellbeing and social connection. I believe reducing community services doesn't address those points. There's 2 items within the budget that I would like to ask about. One is a capital project called the Digital Innovation Program, which is $6 million in this budgeted year and then $2.5 million for 3 years after that. I'm interested in the tangibles from that and what benefits to ratepayers that will provide, and is there any avenue for reducing the budget for that? At $6 million, it seems a lot when we're cutting services to the community. The other interesting fact I found in the budgeting for staffing within the City of Greater Geelong, within the strategy, people and performance area within COG, there's a budget for $6.6 million for 46 temporary staff. Is there any avenue to reduce those temporary staff, given the pain that ratepayers are feeling in reduction of services? I would desperately hate to see any reduction to outdoor aquatics, given the closure of Waterworld for rumoured 8 months, probably more like 12. It leaves people in the north with basically nowhere to swim, so that's my point of view. But I believe if we can reduce those other budget areas, then maybe those funds could be reutilised into supporting existing services. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your submission. Thank you. 802 is Jan Neldecoker. Jan, my apologies. Jan. Okay.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to my submission. Before I begin, 2 comments. I wholeheartedly endorse and support the submissions, especially from Cool Geelong and Geelong Sustainability, regarding funding to respond to the climate crisis. I'm a member of Cool Geelong, but I'm appearing now in my personal capacity. Secondly, this year the website provided less budget information than last year. The high-level nature of the information provided hampers the community's ability to evaluate and comment on the proposed budget. My submission, and you have 1 page as I've brought you, my submission cuts across the budget and the revenue and rates plan. It suggests a revenue source and offers assistance. Importantly, I appreciate the financial pressure the City of Greater Geelong faces and the many interests here tonight that are validly competing for funding. Therefore, the suggestion of revenue and assistance. I suggest improving tree regulation to secure a defensible income source and taking the community up on its offer to develop and maintain a significant tree register. Extensive peer-reviewed research and experience prove that money does, in fact, grow on trees. A city with a sufficient and quality green infrastructure is economically, environmentally, and socially resilient, sustainable, and equitable. In purely monetary terms, preliminary analysis suggests that urban trees provide an average return on investment.
Listening.
Thank you. Let me start with that sentence again, bit of a distraction. In purely monetary terms, preliminary analysis suggests that urban trees provide an average return on investment of $2.25 for each $1 invested. That's an amazing return. Improving and expanding tree regulation and recognizing amenity value is not extraordinary. The research has been done and it's employed worldwide. Examples in Victoria include Melbourne, Bendigo, Hobsons Bay, and then there's Hobart in Tasmania. But also take steps to ensure the best possible investment outcome, like you do with any investment. For instance, develop and maintain a significant tree register. We're offering you an opportunity to do so at no cost. These registers are vital in protecting and improving valuable trees in urban areas. They identify important trees for development applications, promote environmental and cultural awareness, and they foster community collaboration. So in conclusion, improving tree regulation and developing a tree register in Geelong offers a lucrative and sustainable revenue source while advancing multiple sustainable development goals and, most importantly, supports Geelong's climate and fiscal resilience. Let's seize this opportunity to respond to the climate crisis, bolster council finances in the short and long term, and foster community pride and environmental consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you. 803, Ross Smith. 807, Heather Kelly. Thank you, Heather.
My submission is in relation to the recent Aldershot Reserve master plan being taken out of the budget. St Albans Park people, we're a proud suburb, and I think we deserve somewhere that is nice and inspiring and inviting for recreational activities. At present, the vacant paddock that is Aldershot Reserve is not inspiring or inviting. I do also encourage you, the proposed plan was to begin development of the dog park. I do encourage you to revisit and review this and possibly look at, if this was to be put back in the budget, to start development on the park, the children's park and the garden facilities. I think that it's a place that's frequently visited by specialist services and rehabilitation services for their morning walks, and I think that'd be money better spent in putting into places that everyone can come and enjoy, sit and have a coffee with friends and allow their children to play in a nice playground. We're a rural area, we don't really need a fenced dog park. It's not really something that's, you know, extreme priority for us. But I do encourage you to revisit and rethink putting the master plan back into this budget. Thank you.
813, Jason Webb.
Hi. That was my partner Heather speaking. I'm just going to speak about the submission of the Aldershot Park. Like, we moved into the area 2019. I think you put the plans up to put the park up the following year, and we were really excited about it. We had a young family, and yeah, and that's like, now we're really disappointed it's being pulled off. Like, in the area, like, I'm seeing a lot of young families, like the changeover of like old people moving on, and then a lot more young families, like our court, I reckon in the last couple of years we've seen like 4 or 5 families like move in with young kids, and I just feel like yeah, they might even move there because of the park and stuff like that, and like it needs like toilets, and like people would come, and like, yeah, I just feel like it's such a wasted space, and it's not even safe at night. It's really dark out there. Like you look at all these new estates that they build the park first, and then they build the houses around it, and I just feel like, yeah, that's my suspicion, and yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, Jason. Thank you. Uh, 817, Anne Wiskin. Thank you, Anne.
Good evening, Chair, Mayor, councillors and council officers, and I pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people and their elders past, present and emerging. Thank you for the opportunity to address this budget session. My name is Anne Wiskin, and I wish to make 3 main points in my presentation, all of which relate to the matter of library funding, and I support the previous presentations on this subject. Firstly, my experience and position on the subject of public libraries. I've retired to Port Arlington after some 50 years of training, work and research in libraries. I continue my work in librarianship as a consultant, mentor, writer and presenter nationally and internationally. A key element of my work has been research-based practice. My PhD focused on how we might best provide experiences which enable the development of reading literacy, and particularly information literacy, by people at whatever age and circumstance they are. These are fundamental rights and requirements in a healthy democracy, and public libraries play a key role. Which brings me to my second point, which relates to public libraries and their opening days and hours. The core purpose of public libraries since their inception has been to provide quality recreational reading material, authoritative information, and study spaces to all the people in the community. To achieve this, public libraries must be available during business hours as well as and especially outside usual school and work hours, and that includes branch libraries. A branch library is a core part of the whole system. It is not a lesser agency, nor do its users have fewer needs. To have only the city library open in evenings and weekends would deny the rights and needs of people in the broader areas of the library system. And that in turn leads to my third point, which refers to the particular situation for residents of Port Arlington, Indented Heads and St Leonards. We're located about 20 minutes by car from any branch library along busy narrow roads with no bike paths. The mobile library service is only once a week. It provides a limited range of materials and no reading or study spaces, and is difficult to access if you have movement issues. In these days of rapidly evolving digital technology, we need more than ever the expertise, resources and spaces that only a public library can provide. Despite that, the City of Greater Geelong and Geelong Regional Library Corporation decided that our needs could be met by a new Borongook Library building at Drysdale. Surely both bodies must at least honour that commitment by allocating sufficient funds for the branch to remain open, to be properly staffed and to operate after hours and at weekends so all can access it. In conclusion, if I was to judge this council and library system by how well it provides for all people across the region it is meant to serve, my experience and expertise says we're not doing too well. Thank you.
821, Katie Headley. 828, Gary McPike. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, councillors. My name is Gary McPike, CEO for the Coastal Crown Land Manager, Barwon Coast, a statutory body of the Victorian State Government. I'll talk to two proposed funding cuts in the draft budget, strongly recommending, in the interest of public safety and fair and equitable treatment for all ratepayers, that they be reinstated. They are the removal of all COG funding from professional life-saving services on the ocean coast of the municipality, and the removal of all funding support for the Barwon Heads Football Netball Club. Along the Victorian coast, LSV advises that LGAs contribute to funding the provision of the great services provided by LSV. It is our understanding COG will remove all funding from this important emergency service from the Ocean Coast Services while maintaining funding of services at Eastern Beach in Geelong. At Eastern Beach, LSV advises COG contribution is nearly 100% of the cost. At Ocean Grove Main Beach, it's around at 33%. At a time when COG greenfield developments are pouring thousands of more people each year onto our coast and drownings are increasing, COG needs to explain why it is walking away from supporting the provision of such a vital emergency service in one part of the municipality and not in another place. It can easily be argued the funding on the outer coast in the past has provided better value for money than the service provision at Eastern Beach. On the outer coast, the funding achieves what is optimal practice in the provision of public services. That is, each dollar spent is leveraged by a partnership with other agencies. In this case, LSV, and to a lesser extent Barwon Coast, support that. Simply put, every dollar spent by COG is matched by one or two other dollars. If this funding is not reinstated, COG needs to explain why its ratepayers in Brimley, Barwon Heads and Ocean Grove are being treated unfairly. Until recently, the Barwon Heads Football Netball Club was the only club in the Bellarine League that did not receive direct or indirect recurrent funding from COG. All other clubs in the municipality train and play on ovals maintained by COG, facilities that are heavily subsidised by COG. COG's fair play policy and strategy identified that subsidy was well in excess of 70% of the cost of all facilities provided. In 2019, COG resolved that the fair play policy and strategy applied to Barwon Heads Football Netball Club, allocating $20,000 towards its oval maintenance, a fraction of the support provided to other clubs. COG is now proposing to walk away from its own policy and its previous commitment to Barwon Heads Football Netball Club. If this funding is not reinstated, COG needs to explain why the ratepayers of Barwon Heads and the members and supporters of the football club are being discriminated against. Finally, I encourage councillors to reflect on their obligations under the Local Government Act. The Act details overarching governance principles council must respond to, and they are that transparency of council decisions, or two of them are, decisions and actions and information is to be ensured, and collaboration with other councils and governments and statutory bodies is to be sought. If this funding is not reinstated in the light of these principles, it would seem incumbent on council to explain why it is discriminating against some ratepayers and why it is walking away from collaborating with statutory bodies, especially when they provide value for money for COG's dollars invested. Thank you.
Gary. Uh, 829, Chris Cherry. 832, Paul Hare. 843, Sally Kerner. 846, Dan Cowdell. 848, Jennifer Connolly. 850, Manjit Maan. 851, Warren Chapman. Thank you, Warren.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I wish to speak more directly to an outcome in the budget that developed from the councillors or the city undertaking their strategic review. I understand the strategic organisational structure review had a preempted decisions within the budget. I believe the council had not fully taken hold of many of the principles that it identified in in documents that it has shared to the community and had the community involved in previous consultations. Documents similar such as the Climate Change Response Plan, the Sustainability Framework. I note the Council identifies that continual way of thinking, optimal outcomes for people, the environment and the economy, both now and into the future. I see that the Council's structural reorganisation, where the Planning and Design Directorate could be strengthened and should be strengthened and needs to be strengthened with an appointment of a senior manager for environment and sustainability to carry forward a lot of programs that have been consulted and have led the community and helped the community to support ourselves and the Council in the climate change response emergency. I believe that the leadership of a senior manager will support the community, will give the community a focus, and it will help embed the principles into the Council and its operation on important aspects of sustainability, environment protection that leads to a stronger response to the climate emergency. I recognise, and I just quickly identify that in the strategic directions, the Council has identified sustainable growth and environment as something that you are looking to respond to on behalf of the community. In health and wellbeing priorities, tackling climate change and its impact on health. Again, leadership and priorities that you see are important. So I think in those broad concepts that the community will be best supported, it will be properly supported within the organisation and the leadership the organisation can provide for us with a senior position to help carry forward those strategies. I recognise that the environment strategy, and I participated in that with other ones, spoke of the environment unit as such being that sort of heart of the organisation, because it's thinking about the world in which we live and taking forward an intergenerational vision. And I recognise that leadership could again continue to support the very significant consultation the Council has been undertaken with its plan for nature. And then I also just like to identify that this decade is the United Nations Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, which again is something that the Council has demonstrated a capacity to be aware of the global circumstances and has taken leadership in moving forward in a number of international recognisable activities. I'll just leave myself at that. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Uh, 852 is Natalie Fraser. 855, Vanessa Schoenekau. Vanessa.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you for having us here tonight. And before I start, I'd just like to acknowledge that on the land of the Wadawurrung people and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and any First Nations people in the room tonight. And I'm here tonight in my role as CEO of the Geelong Regional Library Corporation. Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the community for their support and courage in demonstrating the value they hold for public libraries. I'd like to apologise for the uncertainty and anguish that this unusual process has caused. Over many years, I've held senior positions in local and state government, and hard decisions have always been negotiated successfully through good processes and goodwill. I'm particularly aware of the reputational damage that can occur when we are forced to quickly respond to a decision, such as that communicated on the night that Council adopted their draft budget, despite many months of conversations. The requested operating funding for Barongok Drysdale Library is $762,000. This is now a 7 days a week model with an 11-hour day on Wednesday and increased weekend hours that under the local government award means penalty rates for our people. The new library is across 2 levels and is 5 times larger than the previous library and so requires more staff. Every time a new or redeveloped library is opened, we work with council officers to agree on the hours of operation and staffing levels. The agreed upon funding required to run these libraries is then reflected in our respective budgets. This is not a process that normally plays out in the public arena. I provided to Council this morning a rough breakdown of what the loss of $762,000 will mean. $262,000 will hold City of Geelong library vacancies, and this includes a $40,000 reduction to the heritage services. $144,000. We would reduce a range of discretionary costs such as marketing, digital and consultancies across our libraries. $13,000. Sites that currently close on a Saturday at 1 p.m. within the City of Greater Geelong would close at 12. $225,000. Libraries currently open on Saturday afternoons in the City of Greater Geelong, except for Geelong Library, would close at 12. $118,000. Libraries currently open on Sundays in the City of Greater Geelong would close except for Geelong Library. We need the required funds for all Geelong libraries, new and old, in the City of Greater Geelong Strategic Resource Plan to ensure libraries continue to stay open now and into the future. Without the required funding, we simply cannot provide services at the same level and quality that everyone currently enjoys. We're a highly effective and valued organisation, providing a cost-effective shared library service for all our 5 member councils. We run an efficient staff model with the largest number of libraries in the state, 19, with 1 on the way, plus 3 mobiles. Our objective is to continue to work collaboratively to open and run libraries across all our 5 member councils. We know how to do this, and I know that the community expects us to do it well, efficiently and effectively. This is what we are known for, not just locally, but within the Victorian local government and public library sector. The community submissions tell us that libraries matter for so many reasons: early literacy, digital inclusion, and providing a warm and welcoming place, particularly during these tough economic times. We look forward to a positive working relationship with Council into the future for the benefit of the communities we both exist to serve. Our priority has always been, and will continue to be, our community and our people. Thank you.
857, Warren Chapman speaking on a different topic.
Thank you, councillors. I'm an Ocean Grove resident, and I've enjoyed a professional working career of nearly 40 years in Ocean Grove, working for the local Foreshore Committee, but enjoying the opportunity to work alongside council officers and council activities. I'd like to bring forward a thought on the capital budget that's been allocated this year for the Lookout Reserve Road, $500,000. And I recognise that there had been a consultation program for the Lookout Reserve, but it wasn't an extensive consultation program. And I see that the design development that has been provided misses out on significant opportunities, which I had previously had an opportunity to talk to and work through with council officers in different strategic planning, and also recognise that the Ocean Grove Lookout Reserve is a focal area for the Ocean Grove Rotary Club, who have both maintained the area but made capital investments in that area to make it a more attractive visitor destination. So I'm just raising the thought that the design provides for a reserved car park for all abilities access at the very west end of the car parking bay. I'm suggesting that that car parking bay be moved to the east end of the car parking bays and the facility be increased in size, because we now see that there are many people who have rear lifts on vehicles and or small vans for wheelchair access, and so there is an opportunity for increased space at that end of the car parking bays for a better facility. and then that there be a minor pathway realignment so that the pathway can be developed at a all abilities grade and can be taken up to the high point that is on Grant's Lookout. In the heritage of Ocean Grove, there used to be an observation tower there at Grant's Lookout that was removed many years ago. The council did salvage a direction dial, which one of its officers at a point of time relocated in storage in Drysdale, and council has subsequently re-erected that there. But particularly the Ocean Grove Rotary Club has developed many years ago a concept plan for improved visit facilities there. I would anticipate that these minor amendments to the scope of works would likely fall within the current budget allocation, assuming with prudent management there is a contingency within that allocation. Thank you for your consideration.
865, Russ Elwin. Just help with the microphone, thank you. There we go.
Thank you. Councillors, the Americans have a saying, kicking the can down the road. I've got a bit of an idea that this draft budget might be that, especially with regard to libraries. Council's got an operating surplus of 1.28 million, and it appears to be achieved by targeting services such as the G21 and GRLC. It's the latter that most affects me as an age-disabled pensioner, and I also act as a volunteer for the Housebound program. Our council can expect GRLC to continue to operate, and you've been said, and this has been said in public and in the press, within the financial constraints being imposed on it by a lesser funding of $762,000 from the 22-23 budget, and offers the same service levels is beyond comprehension. It appears as council was saying it's a GRLC problem, how they do it, but expect them to operate with much less funding. Of course, opening hours will be reduced. Of course, staff attrition will occur, and perhaps even redundancies, and thus services will be cut. And council will say that's GRLC's problem. Now, there's inconsistencies in the budget. I've had a pretty good look at it. And there's only 2 or 3 things I want to bring forward just to illustrate that. The replacement of a gas turbine at Corio landfill with a flare, that's $80,000. I can't work that out. Renewal and maintenance of bus shelters, $754,000 and $40, $754 and $40, and then double up in roads other, $223,000. And a lease of council land, for example, Shell Road, Ocean Grove Cafe, $11,000 per annum over 10 years. Now that's only $211.50 a week. It's consistency in that example of how there's no forward increase or decrease, or, you know, it's just picked that up, figure and done that. Anyway, thank you, Council.
Thank you, Russ. Next is 877, Grace Britton. Geordie Gunderson. 885, Trudy Shard. 90, Vanessa Witten. Sorry. Yeah, Witten. Sorry.
I'm not Vanessa, I'm Chrissy Freestone.
Okay, it's fine.
Good evening to you all. My name is Chrissy Freestone, and I really thank you for the opportunity to speak to the submission on behalf of Cool Geelong. We're a local group concerned about the depleting urban tree canopy in the Greater Geelong area. The important role of trees and vegetation in reducing temperatures in urban areas is globally recognised. They are among our most powerful defences against the effects of climate change and crucial to heat mitigation. Indeed, the 2015 Greater Geelong Urban Forest Strategy recognises that an increase in the tree canopy cover is the most cost-effective and efficient tool to mitigate the urban heat island effect. Cool Geelong is thus alarmed by the lack of budgetary measures designed to protect and increase the urban tree canopy in the Greater Geelong area. The city has as one of its fiscal objectives, and I quote, continued investment in sustainable initiatives to improve the environment, yet actual funding allocation in the proposed budget and introductory policy statements do not appear to align. Our concerns are as follows. Despite the city's commitment to a 20% urban tree canopy target by 2030, Geelong's urban tree canopy has fallen from 14% across public and private land, documented in 2015, to 7 to 10% urban tree cover, as reported in 2022. COG's recent sustainability performance report indicated that the city did not anticipate an increase in urban tree canopy before 2033. This is of great concern. The city has recently been recognised by the UN as a Tree City of the World, which involves, and I quote from the UN, a commitment to building a healthy city now and for the future. Yet the proposed budget does not reflect such aspirations. The only mention of trees in the proposed budget is under fees and charges. This fact, along with the absence of tree management measures in the budget, raises questions as to the genuine commitment to urban forestry excellence as a World Tree City. Specifically, by the city's own admission, trees on private land constitute half of the city's urban tree canopy, yet we have no private tree management policy and no funds appear to have been allocated towards this. Neither are funds allocated to the already lagging progress of the Million Trees project, nor to the development of a significant tree register, an objective of the city's Urban Forest Strategy Action Plan outstanding since 2015. Cool Geelong recommends the following. Funding for measures to manage trees on private land, including but not limited to planning scheme amendments and local tree removal laws. Funding for a significant tree register, as well as consideration of a public-private collaboration with relevant community organisations. Funding for the Million Trees Plan project, for which initial funding was allocated in 2020, and amending the existing public tree management policy to allow for a tree value calculation that includes amenity. Numerous peer-reviewed studies show that urban trees and vegetation contribute to livable and sustainable communities with a range of benefits, including slowing stormwater runoff, energy savings through shading of buildings and air pollution amelioration. Cool Geelong strongly urges Council to review the proposed budget and allocate appropriate funding to support the urban forest improvement programs identified in our submission. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I've just realised an error in the list here, and I've missed one at 870 at Nat Anson. So apologies, Nat. It's a long list.
Evening, councillors. Councillor Harwood, if I could clarify that the submission is on behalf of the Property Council of Australia. I think we're listed as Urbis, but within the context of the submission, it's important clarification. Property Council is the leading advocate for Australia's property industry, the economy's largest sector and employer. In Victoria, the property industry contributes $45 billion in gross state product, employs more than 700,000 workers, pays more than $21 billion in total wages and salaries per year, employs 1 in 4 of the state's workforce, directly and indirectly, and accounts for 57.5% of Victorian tax revenue. Our submission, in terms of recommendations, seeks to restate financial support and broadly recommit to the G21 Geelong Regional Alliance on an ongoing basis, and seeks to provide necessary budget support to proceed with planned integrated transport planning. The background of the submission is Geelong's growth and its rapid occurrence. Geelong is the fastest growing city in Australia over the past 10 years, and we're anticipating growth of approximately 200,000 more residents within the next 20 years in the region. Within this context, we highlight Geelong's integrated transport network as a key concern and identified future constraint on population and economic growth in our region. Significant majority of the major infrastructure required to support the Geelong region's growth will be funded by Commonwealth and Victorian governments, particularly transport infrastructure. We are concerned that the proposed draft budget does not cater to the required planning and advocacy for essential infrastructure to support Geelong's rapid population growth. The G21 Geelong Regional Alliance is a central platform for regional advocacy to Commonwealth and state governments. The proposed funding cut by Greater Geelong, central to G21's funding model, threatens the Alliance capacity to continue its role as a dedicated advocate in the Geelong region. Fundamentally, we do not support the proposition that the role currently undertaken by G21 can be fulfilled solely by the City of Greater Geelong or its associations with Regional Cities Victoria or the Regional Capitals Australia affiliations. It forms the basis of our submission. Geelong's got a lot of growing to do. The infrastructure that we require is regional, even if it's located solely within the City of Greater Geelong. And we'd like the decision relating to G21 specifically to be revisited by Council. Thank you.
Yeah. $894, Dennis Haitley. Thank you, Dennis.
I'm here on behalf of 500 junior footballers, 100 junior cricketers, 250 Oz kickers, representing well over 700 families in Ocean Grove. My name's Dennis Haitley, and thank you, councillors, for this opportunity. On behalf of the Ocean Grove Junior Football Club and the Colandina Cobras Cricket Club, who are tenants at the Colandina Reserve in Ocean Grove, we have a facility that houses arguably the largest junior football program in the Barwon region and quite a strong junior cricket club. The support that our club provides the local community and the juniors alike is second to none. And obviously, as most junior clubs, 100% volunteer run. We support an age-appropriate development of the junior and football cricket programs that importantly drives participation through an inclusive and an environment for all. Our challenge, for 15 years, Council has not contributed any capital funds to this reserve in Ocean Grove. And the safety issues that we have at this ground is majorly of concern. The numbers speak for themselves. We've had a 127% increase in 10 years in our junior program for football, a 50% increase in Auskick, and our junior girls program is one of the football is one of the strongest. What that results in
is huge movement of people every night and on weekends into this facility to play or participate in junior sport. The safety issues that we have highlighted have been conversations with council for many years, and as a result of the club working through with the state and federal funding, we've been able to secure federal funding in 2016, which we acknowledge is part of the budget. And the good news is we also have $1 million state grant that was listed in the state budget just a number of weeks ago to support the safety improvements. So we asked the council to include that in the capital program, fast track the overall improvements of this facility, work with the clubs to finalise master planning in the Ocean Grove SIP, prioritise and consider the playground program and upgrades, given that is a council-owned facility, and also we also asked the council to consider to work with the club around goodwill support for opportunities for in-kind labour utilisation for all the upgrade works to maximise capital investment. Thank you.
Next is 899 Bronwyn Armstrong. 902 Bruce Honey. Thank you, Bruce.
Hi, my name is Bruce Honey. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Ocean Grove Surf Lifesaving Club, and I love the ocean. But I also have concerns of the removal of funding for lifeguard services at Ocean Grove, 13th Beach and Bankura regions. When people go to the beach, they look for the red and yellow flags. It's what draws people to the safest part of the beach. These red and yellow flags have been raised by volunteers for years. From November to April, we patrol Saturday afternoons, all day Sundays and public holidays. Just in case you're wondering, the ocean is still there on Mondays to Fridays. It doesn't go away, it's still there, the risks are still there. As volunteers, we can't be there all the time. We have lives, families, children, schools, uni, and we work in the community just like you guys. This is where the paid lifeguard service is used, covering Mondays to Fridays and Saturday mornings over the peak summer period where the beaches are used most. Geelong Council funding allows Surf Lifesaving Victoria or Lifesaving Victoria to put lifeguards on the beaches that we know and love, but this has been cut. Some people might say lifeguards stand on the beach. That's all they do. Well, they actually do that. That's what they do. They stand on the beach a lot of the time, actually. They stand there and watch over you, your family, and your friends, and the other people at the beach, helping them to make the right choices, the right decision where to swim, closing the beach when it's dangerous, and responding if something happens. I can give you the name of lifeguards right now you could ring and speak to who saved people's lives this summer, from dragging people out of the water, barely breathing, to performing CPR in front of hordes of people watching. More importantly, we can give you the names of people who would not be alive today if those paid lifeguards were not there on those days. Geelong Council funding helps LSV to put lifeguards on our beaches to keep our community safe. The forecast for this summer is hot. It's dry. El Nino, that wonderful person, is back. Think back to a few years ago where we had 3 or 4 40-degree days in a row. We haven't had that in years. We've had the opposite. We've had the floods instead. This year is going to be hot. And this is the period that we choose to cut the funding for lifeguard services. Myself and others are currently on call in case of an issue at these beaches. On call 24/7 as a volunteer when you need us. We'll respond no matter what. Rain, hail or shine. Sounds a little bit like a jingle for a postal service, but we will be there. But as you can see, I'm not at the beach. I might be at work, at the shops, at the school, at uni. It takes time to respond from those locations. Time is precious in those situations. Having lifeguards positioned in these beaches saves lives every year. So imagine if I said to you, we had more than 280,000 people. That's almost 3 MCGs full, and we sent those people into the ocean for a swim. Some of them are locals, some of them are tourists. We don't know if they can swim, and a lot of them have never had a swimming lesson. This time no one's watching. This council is proposing to cut the funding. This is what will happen. That is how many people used our beaches last year during the lifeguard season. Please do not cut lifeguard services. It is not a community activity. It's not a joint venture. It is a critical service for the community. And at this stage, it was in the range of the $40,000 to $50,000 budget. So can we just have a think about the effect that has on our community and also the effect that could have on tourism and also what price can you put on a life? Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. 904, Amy Lavelle. 909, Lyndall Freestone. Lyndall.
Hello, that's actually Lindy Freestone, just to correct it.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I'm the president of the Ocean Grove Surf Lifesaving Club, and I'd like to start by acknowledging the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Surf lifesaving is about saving lives. It is a vital emergency service. The proposed budget report includes the decision to cease $48,750 funding for paid lifeguard services at Ocean Grove, Bankura and 13th Beach for the 2023-24 season. COG cuts to professional lifeguard services, servicing patrolling beaches over summer risks lives. COG is proposing to cease funding paid lifeguarding services when drownings across the state are at a 20-year high, with 51 reported fatal drowning incidents so far this year, and when there was a 56% increase in drownings of children between the ages of 5 to 14 years. In Ocean Grove this season, we recorded 7,288 preventative actions, 3,348 minor first aids, 5 major first aids and 5 rescues, including providing successful emergency life-saving resuscitation, undertaking significant rescues, referring serious injured and unwell people to emergency department via ambulance, and providing first aid in many different situations. Whilst these are combined statistics for volunteers and paid lifeguards, a number of rescues that actually did save lives were paid lifeguards. It's also important to note that beach attendances have over doubled in the last few years, from 40,000 to over 100,000 each season, with many more people attending with having lower swimming and water skills due to the impact of COVID on swimming lessons and other water-based skills development activities. Ocean beaches are particularly challenging with unpredictable and often rapidly changing conditions that can be difficult for even a seasoned beachgoer to manage, let alone the thousands who attend our beaches who are often oblivious to these risks. So it's preventative actions that also matter and not just the rescues that save lives. COG withdrawal of funding will result in significantly reduced lifeguard services over the busy summer months. Ocean Grove Surf Lifesaving Club's mission is to keep the beach safe, and as a voluntary organisation we are gravely concerned that these budget cuts do the opposite. Ocean Grove, being one of the busiest beaches in the state, needs this paid lifeguard funding support. The pressure on our volunteers is enormous and simply not sustainable without paid lifeguards. We cannot fill the gap, especially as paid lifeguards provide services at times that regular volunteers can't. They play a crucial role in mitigating risk and saving lives of residents, visitors and the community, and we rely on paid lifeguards to save lives during summer. The consequences of withdrawing council support for paid lifeguards will lead to more incidents and more chance of drownings, leading to potentially fatal consequences. And to close with some direct feedback from community members who have received this support. We thought it extremely important to communicate the outstanding and critical care provided by the 2 young lifeguards who administered CPR and care. We believe the young people involved need a huge pat on the back. Again, just a massive well done to all involved. And this is a man who was actually resuscitated. He spoke and sent this to me today. Thank you again for your life-saving support. Without it, I would not be here, and my daughters and wider family would have a very different life. I hope it's possible to keep providing these services to others in our community. And one mother said, "You saved my son's life." What value does COG put on life? Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy. Uh, 910, Emma Merrigan.
Hi, I'm Karen from the Friends of Barwon Heads Community Library, speaking on behalf of Emma Merrigan. Beyond just lending books, libraries offer digital resources, host events, provide career support, facilitate lifelong learning, and play a significant role in fostering community health and wellbeing. Greater recognition of these roles and the value that they add to communities should lead to the support, more support and funding, not less. Libraries, due to their significant role in promoting literacy, access to information and community development, should be considered a basic, essential service, untouched by politics and funding cuts. There is no justification for reducing library hours and services in a cost of living crisis or any time. Books and libraries should be for everyone, every day. The Barwon Heads Library is a particularly special place for us. It was built in 1980. Proudly, it is said, by the people, for the people. Our thriving, co-located, low-cost library at $58,000 a year yields $4.30 in value for every dollar spent, underscoring its importance. It is under 1% of our rates. Former principals, mayors, educators, professors, disabled people, CEOs and everyday people have come to this microphone last night, tonight and many times over the years, and they have told this council over and over again to listen. We are the most passionate people you'll ever meet, and the reason is clear. Libraries change lives. Our group is tirelessly working to dispel the ongoing risk of closure to the Barwon Heads Library, a risk exacerbated by its comparison to larger libraries, and in this case, when a new one opens. It is unjust for our community to consistently face the risk of losing our library. The request for operational funding for the new Drysdale and Armstrong Creek libraries has been called an additional request. However, that is not what it is at all. Rather, it is an obligation under the library agreement. Funding should never have been denied or cut. The present circumstances are exceptional, particularly considering the substantial population growth occurring in our region. What confounds me is that for 2 decades, operating costs for new libraries went through a process and were agreed upon, always well before tonight. We should not be here. This is not part of the process. We should not have to come here again and again. We ask that you reassure communities that next year, Council won't earmark operating costs for Armstrong Creek as additional funding, as it did with Drysdale this year. We ask for the restoration of the required funding of $762,000 for Drysdale Library in the budget so that there's significant service reductions do not happen across other libraries. This is petitions that people have signed. They never should have had to.
We do appreciate that you are well over the 3 minutes, but do you wish for that petition to stay with us, or
There's 1,480...
do you wish for that petition to stay with us tonight?
Yes, so I put it through.
Could you hand that over and we'll...
Yep,
that'll
so
be
there's
appreciated.
1,480 signatures on
We've heard
here.
that. Yep. Thank you.
So no one else does, though. Thank you.
911 Will Hudson. I'm going to go to 915 Gunter Starr.
Thanks for this opportunity to speak to my submission. Great. Look, I'm going to surprise you all. I'm going to start with a positive here. I am here on behalf of the Geelong West Library and the combined group, the Action Group, the group that invited you all to Saturday's Q&A. But on a positive note, I'm just relieved to find, after ploughing through a really opaque budget, that the youth development area appears to have been funded adequately. Hey, you know, I applaud the city for that. I'll be sorely disappointed if I later find out otherwise, okay? But I'm here because I'm aghast at the city's avoidance of its obligations to maintain the required funding to the Geelong Regional Libraries Corporation for our growing library services and facilities. Made a few points about the budget. You've all got copies of my submission. I won't go through that again. I have offered some suggestions. Now, many of you will be understandably aghast at the first one about the decimation of salaries to senior management positions and councillors' allowances. Naturally, I realise you've got contractual employment obligations to those senior managers, and the last thing I want is for the city to be dragged through court and lose even more money. But last Saturday, a number of councillors who were present kept referring to the need for belt tightening all round. And I reflected on some of the homilies about we're all in this together. And then I realised the councillors were actually talking about community programs and services. And you know, my interest area, libraries. So it's about time, and I'll put this forward in point one, that councillors set the example to the rest of the community, showing that we are genuinely all in this together by accepting a 10% to 15% cut in their allowances, at least for the coming budget year. We might even be able to auction off the mayor's car if that's still part of the package. I would like to know how much we can save. I was not able to find this in the budget, but Geelong's Christmas tree, its storage, display and security costs, I'd like someone to have a look at that. I mean, all up, we're talking about small figures, but if we have enough of them, we could get close to 760,000 eventually. I'm convinced that through further negotiation between the city and the Geelong Regional Libraries Corporation and their diligent work, that some appropriate solution can be found. Now,
Well, we're over the 3 minutes, but...
Beg your pardon,
we're over the 3 minutes.
Okay.
Would you like to conclude, please?
I just want to conclude then. I do wish to withdraw my last point. I don't think identifying parcels of municipal land and selling it off is a long-term solution to the problem we face right now. So because this is a matter of public record, I do withdraw that last point. Okay? Thanks.
Cool. 918, Jennifer Felco. 919, Felix Blatt. Thank you, Felix.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing my verbal submission. My name's Felix Blatt. I'm a resident of Geelong. I'm also a committee member of the Geelong Jazz Club. I play in 3 jazz bands in Geelong. And last year I ran a small festival in Little Mallop Street called the Geelong Jazz Day, which was funded or supported by Geelong Council. And there were some 50 musicians playing, plus 3 or 4 venues. And it was a great success, according to the feedback I got. And I did it again this year. This year, again, there are over 50 musicians and 4 venues, and some younger people are involved, and again, feedback was that it was a great day, but there was no support from the council. I understand that the arts and culture part of the council is in a bit of flux at the moment through changes, so that's understandable, but my submission is about ensuring that these sort of things don't fall in a heap. I'm not going to do it again next year, but the council and I are thinking of doing something perhaps a bit bigger, a bigger festival, and I would just request that the council ensure that whatever the division is or department, arts and culture, what it will be adequately resourced. I see that the budget for arts and culture is 19 million, thereabouts. We got nothing this year. That must have been in last year's budget that it was cut. And I'm not looking particularly for money handouts for events or for musicians or artists, and I'm not even representing jazz musicians, just musicians generally, actors, whatever, performers in Geelong, that the council is funded properly in its arts and culture department to be able to continue with these events that bring money and joy and life to Geelong itself. Thank you.
920, Karen Firth.
Barwon Heads community is a much-loved community resource for my family. We enjoy visiting Penny, learning and reading. We also love to visit other libraries. They are like a second home to us and for many people. Now more than ever before, our local communities have a need for social connectedness. It's very important for libraries to be in the communities that they serve, not to force communities to travel to them. Our local library is warm and welcoming, a place to feel safe and to enjoy. It is a community hub that we can go to without having to buy a coffee or place board. We walk, we ride there, we meet there. For some residents who don't drive, the stroll Down there may be their only weekly outing. It is important to acknowledge and appreciate the significant cultural and geographical distinctions between Barwon Heads in the Bellarine region and the City of Geelong. I respectfully urge the Council to remain attentive and responsive to these differences, ensuring that decisions made are not oblivious to the unique characteristics and needs of each area. It is significant that of library visitors, 60% are women, 30% are children. 1 in 3 of our community are library members, 1 in 3. If you aren't that one person, you will know someone who is. The city speaks by saying, we value our libraries. The city acts by, in the 11th hour, not funding the operating costs of 2 new libraries. The cognitive dissonance is real. Council for decades operated in accordance with the library agreement by providing operational funding for new and/or expanded services. All partners in the GRLC, including Golden Plains and the Borough of Queenscliff, have also funded their new libraries' operational costs in accordance with the agreement. They don't sit before their councils in this process. We are not part of this process. Libraries should be shielded from the drastic cuts due to their essential and wide-reaching impact. I do not plan to come back here for a third battle, a third time. To help, I ask that if and when you hang up your councillor's hat, that you pass on this message to your successors. Libraries are a basic, essential service. They are sacrosanct. If you build a new library, pay to open it. They hold immense value to our communities. To ensure that existing libraries remain open and that services are not cut, I ask that you fund the ones you build. Do not change the decades-long agreement you have with the GRLC. Do not renege on the library agreement. Fund the $762,000 required to operate Drysdale, and the following year, fund to operate Armstrong Creek.
Thank you. 923 Steve Lavakis.
Well, thank you first for the opportunity to speak to my submission. I appreciate it. I come as a resident of Geelong, a person who comes from a non-English speaking background originally, and I guess that's what drove me to write to Council when it introduced its budget cuts. And from my understanding, the budget cuts involve a reduction in the number of staff within the council, and more specifically the staff who work in the Healthy Communities Department. Now, what I'm concerned about is that getting rid of staff who have a professional interest and knowledge base in working on issues around issues to do with multiculturalism, gender equity, harm minimisation from gambling, alcohol and other drugs, issues of First Nations people. Losing that body of knowledge concerns me. And I'm sure that the council staff will do every effort to try and encompass those issues within their day-to-day work, but my experience of council staff are that they are under a fair bit of pressure, work hard, and they're under, I guess, working hard to get their day-to-day business done. Having staff which have that broader sense of these issues, I think would be integral to the proper running of the council. Not only does it help within having a department of people with that sort of perspective in the one place, because it enables that interchange of ideas, but it also enables the advocacy for those sorts of issues within the municipality. And I guess I think about for example, the Idaho flags that come up during, in May each year, the council running activities during what used to be called Gambling Awareness Weeks. So I guess I was driven by my own personal background to bring this to Council's attention. Council is the government, not just wait for direction from state and federal government and how to react with these issues, but being the government which is most closest to the people, to have you have the strongest handle on these sorts of issues at the local level. So I encourage you to think again about eliminating those positions and to consider how you can go forward in maintaining that expertise, if you like, within the council organisation. Thank you.
929 Ingrid Flood.
Evening, hi. I'm not prepared for this at all. I did prepare a submission and put it in, but I didn't prepare speech anyhow. So I'm speaking about, my name's Ingrid, I'm speaking about continuation of funding for libraries, especially not just keeping them open, but open, as a lot of other speakers have said, after hours, weekends. It's really important. I'm not a poet, but it's a bit, it's not structured. So really half of my ancestors were educated at hedge schools in Ireland. And it's only a few generations ago, I can count that. And I'm saying that because I'm visualising, we could go there again. The railway stations in Geelong have reset up small libraries on their platforms. People experiencing unstable housing, homelessness, I'm sure the librarians could tell you this. Since COVID, when the libraries reduced their opening hours, which meant they reduced their after hours access, the number of people who don't have stable housing has increased around the railway stations. Geelong V-Line station is known to have security staff there up till, they have their own staff till about 11, then there's security staff till when the early trains begin again. It's a really safe space. People, besides the salvos, other people drop in there and subtly offer assistance. And yeah, it has become a space where you'll see people who enjoy reading, learning. That's perhaps why some people who experience homelessness had attended libraries before. It's not just people say it's a warm, safe space. No one's going to hassle you and tell you to move out. Everybody who enjoys reading, everybody who enjoys stimulating their mind should be able to have a comfortable place to do that. And I'm really happy for my rates to pay for other people to have that sort of access. In the same 1850s, the other half of my family owned houses that were big enough to have a library this size. So I've got both sides, the academics and the workers. So I'm just going to throw a few things that I've identified as concepts. I don't have statistics. There are plenty of people, including myself and people I know well, that didn't attend school straight through, prep to year 12 to university. I've ended up with a couple of university degrees, certificates from TAFE. I've taught at TAFE, taught at uni, taught at kinder. I've done blue collar jobs. But I dropped out of school and after primary school, pretty much spent a lot of time at libraries or going to the library to get something and going to the Botanic Gardens. This is in St Kilda in Melbourne. I know, and I've worked in alternate education a lot, and I can recognise people's learning abilities and their interests, and I can support them. And I know there are a lot of people who use libraries as their source of self-education, and might skip high school and may re-enter university later or work. And I think around equitable access to resources and equitable access to participation in society, when a lot of government functions became, they were put online, I believe, I was working in a library at the time, I heard that the government was obliged to somehow support equitable access to technology. For example, people who are unemployed, people who are unemployed have got huge responsibilities to communicate with Centrelink and all the rest of that.
Ingrid?
Yeah.
We understand the sentiment of your submission this evening. You're over time.
Okay.
So if you'd like to conclude briefly, that would be
Sure.
appreciated. I do appreciate the sentiment that you're...
No, that's okay. No, I understand, because I wasn't prepared, so...
I understand that.
Okay, one last one. Tutors, volunteer or paid tutors, working with children's checks, they meet at libraries with students. It's a safe space for young people to be in, and I don't see an alternative to that either. So, all right, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ingrid. No. 914 is Warren Chapman, but we've heard from Warren twice already, so we'll hear later this evening, Warren, if we're still going at that time. Thank you. Number 930, Kathleen Richards. Thank you.
Thank you, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have a number of concerns about the draft budget and also the information that's not contained within it. I'm not a budget expert. I'm a mother of 2 active boys and a carer of my 89-year-old mum. I'm an onlooker to the budget process of around $450 million in expenditure, of which I see about half will be spent on capital works programs, seemingly at the expense of community services. The expenditure report against the previous budget seems extremely poor and mismanaged, and questions for overspends of last year's budget and expenditure need to be asked. I, along with many speakers tonight, many people have signed petitions, many people have been to rallies, want the libraries funded as per the Geelong Regional Libraries Corporation's draft budget. The past cooperative relationship between the council and the corporation should not be mistaken for the council's lack of diligence, nor the corporation's lack of responsibility. Full funding by council of the Libraries Corporation budget had been the norm for decades, so we've heard this evening. The sudden move away from that cooperative relationship has resulted in, I think, an embarrassing funding cut that has brought on community outrage and disgust. Whilst the Mayor again today stated in the local paper that the budget process is collaborative, extensive, and has been ongoing since the last budget, our community clearly feels abandoned and certainly not part of or privy to discussions about our library closures or service reductions. I support the Geelong Regional Library Corporation's bid in requesting that the City of Greater Geelong provide the required funding of $762,000 for the 2023-24 financial year to operate the Drysdale Library for a year. The Geelong Regional Library Corporation is considered to be a best practice model. I've been absolutely astounded by the suggestions and threats by the acting CEO of the council, Karina Filand, and councillors Contalge and Nelson, threatening that the Geelong Regional Library Corporation be brought back in-house to be managed under the council operations. The structure of the Library Corporation is considered to be best practice, and whilst the Local Government Act requires that the corporation by 2030 to change nature, the operation and function of the corporation should not. I support community calls for community representation on the Geelong Regional Library. Do I have another minute after that, Bell?
You have about 15 seconds to...
All right, good. Okay, I'll go fast. Because I wanted to talk about the pools, because again, another aspect of the budget process that has severely lacked consultation with stakeholders. Again, community outrage about the proposed winter closure of pools. Karingi Pool is the only 50-metre pool permanent 50-metre pool in our region. We have the Commonwealth Games knocking at our doorstep in a few short years, and we're fighting to keep the pool open. My son's a swimmer, so I've got a little bit of an interest in that. And I support the positions put by the Geelong Swimming Club last night through their petition to fund the pools over winter. I just have one quick last question, which was if you can tell me at some point there's a rumour mill that there was a $15 million price tag on an abandoned and failed IT project of council. I'm very interested to find out what that refers to. I can't find any information about it in the budget documents. Thank you.
933 is Michael Homewood. Thank you, Michael.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and submitters, and I understand there are lots of needs for the funding. I'm talking in support of Cardinia Pool, remaining over the winter period. I'm Michael Homewood. I have expertise in health and exercise. I've been a medical practitioner in this region for 40 years. I've worked in general practice for 33 years. I currently work at Bowen Health at the multidisciplinary meetings for bowel cancer, and exercise is one of the key things that we promote for treatment of cancer. I've been 55 years a regular swimmer. 40 years I've swum at Cardinia Pool, and it was with some glee that over the COVID period that we learnt that the pool was going to be open all year round, and I thought that could well continue. So I'm talking about myself. I'll talk about exercise and its value for health. I know many of you yourself might have cancer or have a relative or know someone close who's got cancer. You may or may not be aware that regular exercise can allow a 25% reduction in the incidence of prostate, breast, bowel and lung cancer. Exercise allows people to tolerate chemotherapy better. If you get cancer and you exercise to a certain level on a regular basis, there can be a 25% recurrence in reduction. There's a 60% decreased incidence in diabetes in people who exercise regularly. It's better than medication, not that you should stop all your medication, of course. For heart disease, hypertension, osteoarthritis, for Alzheimer's, there's a 30% reduction in people who exercise regularly. Now, some people can't exercise without being in water. We know that the outdoor heated pool at Cardinia provides a great atmosphere in a reasonably warm environment, but not always, but not with high levels of chlorine to be inhaled, which some people find difficult, and also with the ultraviolet, which we know is good for vitamin D in winter. I put a survey through at the pool and had more than 200 responses, from an 83-year-old to a 9-year-old, and overwhelmingly there was responses by people saying, I do this for my health, I have osteoarthritis, I can't do other exercise. The 50-metre pool is really important, and I do it for general health and for mental health. The other thing I want to talk to you about is costs. Now, I've only have access to back of the envelope type figures, but I did a few of those. I understand from the newspaper that it costs $22 out of pocket for the council for every swim entry. Now, that really is quite a good investment for the community. An accident emergency visit costs $714 per visit. An admission to hospital costs more than $5,000. The federal budget for each person is $3,900 a year. The Bowen Health budget is about $3,000 a person a year. The prescription costs are about $570 a person a year. Stonington Council, which has an income of $1,658 per person, has 2 outdoor heated pools open all year round. City of Greater Geelong, with 25% higher budget per person, is not able to produce one. I've got with me letters of support from Andrew Giddy, who's the Executive Director of Westvic Primary Healthcare Network. A letter from Dr. Alan Appleby, who's been a cardiologist for 33 years in Geelong. And a letter of support from Francis Diver, the CEO of Bowen Health, in support of my submission. I have numerous people who've signed my various survey in support of them, including cardiothoracic surgeons, oncologists. Really, the pool needs to be open for the health of this community as a whole. A cost of $22 per person per visit is very small compared to all the other costs that we face, and it's a priority. Thank you.
937, Mary Ann Briggs. 938, Lucy Fay.
9. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. Really appreciate it. I'm also going to be talking about the pool. I'm an East Geelong resident and a regular swimmer at Cardinia Park Pool. I'm extremely concerned about the council's proposal to close the pool for the whole of winter. Cardinia is the only 50-metre pool in Geelong, and the closest 50-metre pool is in Lara, which is also closed for winter. LeisureLink and Splashdown are almost always at capacity with exercise classes and kids learning to swim, and the pool in Norlane is closing shortly for renovations. Cardinia is really the only viable option for swimmers who want to properly train. But pools are more than just places for exercise. They're a place where you come to have some time to yourself, to look after your well-being. They're a place for building self-confidence, and they're a place for building community connections. That's been the case for myself, and it's also been the case for so many people in Geelong and so many people along the Bellarine Peninsula and the Surf Coast. Over 2,400 people have now signed the petition I started to keep Cardinia Park Pool open year-round. And I'd like to share a few of the comments that people have left on the petition because they're really powerful reasons for keeping that pool open. Lisa said, "I'm very concerned about the detrimental effect the winter closure will have on the physical and mental health of myself and other pool users. I recently moved to Geelong. I did a lot of research before relocating and chose Geelong from other regional cities for health, well-being and lifestyle reasons. Following a serious road accident in which I was hit and run, I have ongoing mobility issues. Swimming is very important to maintain joint and muscle mobility and for keeping my body moving as it should. For this reason, a prime factor in deciding where to live was the presence of a centrally located 50-metre lap pool. I discovered that Geelong had one, and this confirmed my decision, and I made the move to Geelong." Leslie wrote, "We love swimming all year round at Cardinia. It is integral to my daughter who suffers from juvenile arthritis, as swimming is her only option for fitness and well-being." Then there's Simon. "I'm based in Anglesea and training for a 36-kilometre swim. The pool and the crew I train with here is key to this being possible." Then lastly, there's Sharon. "We swim here every day. Without this, I wouldn't be able to keep working as a nurse." The community understands that the council needs to find ways to cut costs and to balance the budget. Everyone across Australia is feeling the pinch of the economic crisis right now, but I would really urge the council to find ways to cut costs that don't cost the health and well-being of the community of Geelong. Cardinia Pool isn't just a summertime luxury, it is a necessity for the community. We need it to stay open year-round so that we can look after ourselves and take responsibility for our health and well-being. Thank you.
(948) Morgan Quick.
Hi guys, hope you haven't gone to sleep yet. It's been a busy night. I'm here to put in a request for the Melaleuca Memorial Park footpath on the west side. That park there has been there for 90 years and there is no footpath. It is bequeathed to the Shire, bequeathed to the council by the Shire of Bellarine many, many years ago. You cannot get us access to the bus stop from Ballaroon Highway unless you go round through the tennis courts, which I've been advised to do, as there's already a path on the other side at the supermarket, which was probably built by the supermarket. The council didn't have much doing that. So, but when you go around the footpath through the tennis courts, you come to a gravel area that is littered with trucks and taxis and council workers having their snacks and having on the phones and all the rest of it, having their rest time. And there's no marked area through that area. It's very, very dangerous. And to be directed through there is just not safe. Nothing's marked, it's on gravel, and the council is saying use that. Or cross over two sets of lights, walk along in front of the supermarket, cross over the entry exit, which is quite dangerous, go across another exit, then cross back over with the lights to the bus stop. Totally unacceptable. 90 years we've been waiting. The track is like the Kadoka track. It is deep, it is covered with potholes, it has got great holes in it. I noticed the council, after I asked someone about it, there was some loam dropped in at the bus stop where there was an exposed grate and the lip was about 2 inches high. Good work, thanks for doing that. But there's a lot more to do. If you can't afford a footpath, for Christ's sake, just put a bit of loam along the footpath or on the GO track. That's all I ask. I've been told they mow it, but the mower must straddle it because there's nothing in the middle. And tonight, there'd be a mud hole. You know what it's like, Bruce, outside that ground. That's a disgrace. 90 years. The War Memorial Reserve. Surely we can do better than that, lest we forget. Thank you.
Thanks, Morgan. Our next one is, as we're getting towards the end, 449 Roman. I only have the first name here.
Thank you, councillors, for letting me speak. Yes, my name is Roman, commonly called Ray Sharawara, and I'm here to ask you to keep the Kardinia Park pool open. I swim 6 days a week at that pool. It's essential that we have in Geelong a 50-metre heated outdoor pool open all year round. I'm 71 years of age and I'm a cancer survivor. Swimming is an integral part of what I do to be able to maintain my physical and mental health. Many people, young and old, swim regularly at the Kardinia pool, and if you ever go down and have a look and see what's going on, it's like Bourke Street. Lanes are full. It's fantastic to see. Those people are all being healthier and looking after themselves. It's great. Council should be encouraging people to use the Kardinia pool and to be involved in swimming and not shunning an asset which provides so much good. Closing the pool, I think, is a very narrow, blinkered look at an activity which offers so much to so many people. And it actually has a massive monetary benefit to society. I'd like to quote from this book, and I'd like to table it today. My submission refers to this and all the beneficial financials, what it has for our community. This is a book produced by PricewaterhouseCoopers and the Royal Lifesaving Society, and it's titled The Social and Economic Value of the Australian National Aquatic Industry and what it does for us and how it keeps us healthy and alive. 9.1 billion it contributes to the health, social and economic benefits of Australia, swimming. This report also establishes that the aquatic industry provides the following benefits, and people have already mentioned. Improves mental health outcomes, improves physical health outcomes, reduces absenteeism from work, and it avoids people drowning. Participation in aquatic facilities can reduce the likelihood of developing the following conditions, and people have mentioned this: type 2 diabetes. Do you know there's 1.3 million people in Australia walking around with type 2 diabetes? Bowel cancer, uterine cancer, dementia, coronary heart disease, breast cancer and stroke all are associated with sedentary behaviour. ABS figures show in Australia, 2017-18 figures show that 60% of Australians are either overweight or obese. That's terrible. And that figure has grown enormously. People are walking around. We should be looking after our health. All the other stuff we talk about is no value and we're no good. I ask councillors to take a good hard look at what their role is looking after ratepayers and the citizens of Geelong. Do you councillors take the health and well-being of citizens seriously? Councillors shown they want to be involved in decision-making, which involves economic, social and well-being matters. Examples are tackling the climate change, looking at the support for LGBT community, all good stuff. But what about the people that want to stay healthy and not be a burden on society? Closing the pool is not demonstrating balanced decision-making. Swimmers are serious about keeping healthy and provide example to all on how one should look after their own physical and mental well-being. I say swimmers' lives matter. Swimming saves lives. Keep our pool open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. 172 is Tansy Young.
I don't want to be talking again, but
We're
I am.
representing Tansy.
Yeah. So most of our group are women. They're working. They're looking after kids. They've spent the last 3 weeks putting in so much effort into this, and it's wasting all of their time. So with the petition, there was 480 signatures on the written petition, 969 on an online petition. For a small community, that's a huge amount, and I'm looking forward to that being acknowledged and presented by Councillor Cadwell at the 27th of June meeting. Tansy had these 2 simple questions, so I won't take more time. Drysdale operational costs were agreed upon in the current budget, 22-23. Why has this now been defunded? Will $762,000 be allocated to the GRLC in the budget process to keep all libraries open and fully operational as our community deserves and expects? The second question, why was the library agreement contravened? Is the council at risk of going to commercial arbitration? Why was there no engagement and consultation before refusing to fund new libraries, therefore not allowing the GRLC to conduct a service review report and denying community consultation? And I'd like to take, more of your time by reading out all of the people that wrote on the petition online who spoke about their libraries and also spent a lot of their time. So it might be that I'm sitting here for a 3rd time, but there's been a lot of people put in a lot of effort that haven't been heard. Thank you.
Submissions on the proposed revenue and rating plan. 1005, Brian Golland.
COG staff and all those brave enough to attend tonight. The essence of a budget discussion is how the heck did we get this? This budget is what COG have determined that they want. COG is spending well below its ability to repay or control any external or internal pressures that bring us here tonight. COG is going backwards with due regard to any serious outcomes that might materially affect COG's ability to reduce debt over the longer term. Just today in the Addy, we've seen the former Bellarine MP in Gary Spry OA voice his concern over the real basics of this budget, and I quote, "The experience of the ensuing 30 years since amalgamation, however, have left many residents in the separate, thriving townships and districts of the peninsula with a feeling of being merely rate revenue raising milking cows for the adjoining and dominant metropolis of Geelong." Both Jill and myself could not have said it better And as pensioners, we object strongly and are angry at how this burden of rate revenue has been shifted to the Bellarine Peninsula residents. As shareholders of this enterprise, and we're residents but we're shareholders, we expect significantly better of a smart and creative council who appear not to be able to understand or appreciate what the shareholders want from their organisation. Uneven rate valuations have given rise to the unintended consequences of the differential valuations and has unfairly penalised the residents of the Bellarine, and particularly those with limited income, and the ward councillors of the Bellarine need to champion a change for fairness. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. 1006, Emma Merrigan. Someone's going to chit-chat us.
I have been requested by Karen Firth, who you've heard from several times already this evening, to save her
This is on behalf of Emma.
the burden. She was authorised by Emma Merrigan, and she's requested that I speak to Emma Merrigan's submission. Friends of the Bowen Heads Community Library request amendments to the City of Greater Geelong's proposed revenue and rating plan for 2023-24. The post-election revenue and rates plan outlined the shift of $15 to $20 million of rates paid by local business, industry and fossil fuel generators to residents. The original timeline earmarked for the aggregation and reduction of commerce, industry and petroleum into one rate set at 1.8 was 2031 to 32. The current ratings plan proposal seeks to accelerate the transfer of higher rates to residents and lower commercial rates by 25-26 budget period. Given Council desperately needs revenue, it would be prudent to pause the commercial rate reduction for the forthcoming year and extend the timeline until 31-32 as originally planned. This would immediately add around $2.5 million into the proposed budget. Set against the backdrop of a reduction in services for the operation of libraries, an already gutted community life and arts department, and potentially Cardinia Pool, the revenue and rating plan in its current form is failing on its key objective. Explain how Council will generate sufficient income to deliver infrastructure services and programs to ensure the social, economic and environmental sustainability of our region. In addition, we are staggered to learn of the hefty rate reduction Council has already implemented and is looking to extend further to the petroleum rate. Throwing business, industry and petroleum into one rate category for simplicity's sake limits COG's ability to adjust rates based on the economic impacts facing those unique sectors. Businesses in Geelong likely weather very different pressures to a large fossil fuel producer currently experiencing around 70% year-on-year revenue growth. We do not understand the justification for this rate and revenue adjustment in the current climate. Thank you for your consideration. Emma Merrigan.
Our last one listed for this evening is back to Warren Chapman, 914. You still with us, Warren? Yep.
To bring forward a matter a small project proposal. I do recognise within the council budget there's some significant funding being allocated to coastal infrastructure. And also this evening we have heard through Barwon Coast Committee and Ocean Grove Surf Lifesaving Club and Lifesaving Victoria some comments on priorities for waterway safety. Presently, along the City of Greater Geelong coastline, there's a set of beach markers, pyramids. The city does use those landmarks in some of its legal documentation. That was a water safety initiative dating back to the late 1980s. The establishment of the 000 system through the ESTA saw that those previously installed infrastructure was not compliant or compatible to the current 000 system. And so I'm just sort of bringing forward that perhaps that system is inappropriate to be maintained along our coastline in the arrangement where it's identifying people to dial 000 and quote that reference number. That reference number is not of an immediate point of information that a 000 dispatch uses, and so it could create a point of confusion. We have learnt through ESTA and through government programs that the 000 relies very much on clear, precise location information. So I recognise that in a large budget, specific small items may not be clearly enunciated that it's made public. I'm just requesting that the consideration be applied that the city now look to update its emergency marker system along the coastline. The city, through other areas of the municipality, does apply consistent ESTA emergency marker systems, the Ballerine Rail Trail being an example. I see this as very much a waterway safety and personal health and safety to beach waterway users. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any persons in the room who have made a submission but haven't been heard this evening? So we've covered everyone off who's attended this evening. So thank you for that. It is appreciated, as I said earlier tonight, to come and be a part of the budget process and make your submission and be heard by the council group. We now have a recommendation before us that I'll read, which basically is to take the next step of the review panel. So the recommendation is that the submissions review panel acknowledge the submissions received, which we have done. Thank the submitters for their submissions, which we do. We sincerely do appreciate the feedback that we've got. We've, I guess, a lot of passion and a lot of clarity in what the parts of the community are seeking there. Having heard all persons wishing to speak to the submissions, recommends that Council consider the submissions at the Council meeting to be held on the 27th of June 2023. Can I get a mover for that recommendation, please?
Yeah. Point of order, if you don't mind. I've just been advised that there's a correction to the number of the petitions that were actually submitted tonight. So just for the purpose of the minute, if you don't mind, before we wrap up, it was actually 1,480 on the printed petition that was submitted. So 1,480 submissions to that petition. Thank you.
Thank you. So can I get a mover for the recommendation, please? Thank you, Councillor Cadwell and Councillor Mason. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. That concludes our meeting this evening. And again, we say thank you to the community.